Well, hello there, one and all. This is Liz Grace Christie. Thank you for tuning into my channel, Galactic Mythology, a channel where we explore astrology, esoterica, and how it applies in our daily lives. Today, I am reporting on the weekend of June 20th through June 23rd. This is my 34th Weekend Goddess Report. Thank you again for tuning in. This weekend is somewhat problematic, and the reason I feel this is because we have a lot of interactions with planets within the later and earlier degrees of these signs throughout the zodiac. The particularly affected areas would be Cancer, Virgo, Aries, Aquarius, and Scorpio if you pay attention to the asteroid goddesses like we do in this report. Hecate is no longer retrograde. It appears that she went direct around the same time that Jupiter entered the sign of Cancer back around June 11th, 2025. Jupiter entering the sign of Cancer created a very nice trine between Hecate, the guardian of the threshold, and Jupiter, the king of our beliefs and expanding those beliefs. Hecate and Jupiter having an interaction is interesting because there's a excessive amount of underworld energy about. Cancer has to do with our ancestors. It is linked to the moon, which is habitual in its nature. It's also very sensitive, and it is the fastest moving body in our sky that we track in astrology. It spends about 2 to 2.5 days in one sign, meaning that about every 2 to 3 days, we experience a different energetic moon. That's why it's considered to be moody, because it really doesn't stay in the same mood for very long. This is water, so it has to do with emotions. This aspect, this trine, is a water trine between Jupiter and Hecate. And Hecate is a goddess that loves rivers and any liminal manifestation we can find in the 3D, such as crossroads. But this weekend, I would say water is definitely your friend. It's worth it to explore the depths of the underworld as they manifest around us. I personally have been feeling a lot more tired these days and a lot more emotionally overwhelmed. I don't know about you, but I definitely feel like I have been having to confront a lot of habitual patterns, the moon, that I've been carrying around for years. I've picked them up through my family, and I've also just picked them up through the experience of my life. And I feel like I've been in a place of processing all of my habitual habits and taking it a little bit slower these days, as much as I can, as much as my lifestyle will allot. This has to do with a lot of the Aries energy in the first decan of the sign of Aries, because we have Saturn in Aries at that first degree, and we have Neptune at that second degree. And this weekend, we start the weekend off on June 20th, 2025 with Jupiter in Cancer at the second degree, making a exact applied square to the planet Neptune, meaning that over the course of this last week, Jupiter was making an applied square to the planet Saturn. And I think that aspect right there, it might be the culprit behind my dark night of the soul I seem to be simultaneously experiencing this past week, this reflection time. Saturn has to do with reflection, with foundation, and with stability. And having Jupiter in a square aspect to Saturn is a fight between two leaders. They don't really have room for each other at the dinner table. The story goes that Jupiter usurped Saturn, and therefore Saturn gave up his throne against his will to his son Jupiter, fulfilling this prophecy that Saturn desperately tried to avoid in the mythology, but ultimately Zeus did conquer. So here we are. This last week, we were probably feeling a lot of internal struggle between our purpose and our creativity, along with exactly where we are right now and how our physical reality doesn't add up with a lot of the things we believe we should have or should be at, and therefore we are being given a chance to course correct. With that in mind, asteroid goddess Hecate at that 0 degree point of Scorpio is not too far away from asteroid goddess Vesta, who is also at Scorpio, and as we start the weekend off, she's at the 5th degree of the sign of Scorpio. Vesta and asteroid goddess Hecate have been traveling with one another for quite some time now. Now that Hecate has officially ended her retrograde, she will be inching closer and closer to Vesta as fast as she can. Hecate, coming out of retrograde recently, is moving at a slower pace than Vesta, so she's basically going to be chasing the goddess of the hearth for the next few weeks, and eventually they will come to meet again. But this weekend in particular, with Vesta being at that 5th degree, only 5 degrees away from asteroid goddess Hecate, this goddess of the threshold and the mother, maiden, and crone, Hecate, they're coming in to offer support. I've said in past episodes that these goddesses, Vesta and Hecate, along with Black Moon Lilith and Juno, the Brat Pack, have been hanging out in the sign of Scorpio for quite some time, and they are organizing another gathering. They separated over the last month. It looks like Lilith moved out and about around all the goddesses and left them at one point. So she's out of there in the weekend of June 20th, but she will return back to her Brat Pack closer to the middle of July 2025, kind of lightening the load of criticism that these goddesses have. Vesta is probably the most specific to the light, but she's also a container. She's a vessel that we can project intention upon and connect with gods through. So she really asks us to be aware of what we project into the ethers and what we are connecting with. And I would say asteroid goddess Hecate is supporting that, because she's not necessarily good or bad. She's a navigator of all realms and has the ability to guide people, but only if they're willing to work on themselves to perceive her offering of guidance as help, because she can be a little cold within her wisdom. She obviously has a mothering tendency, a impulse in her, because she offers her services to Ceres and Persephone and that myth. She's definitely interested in mother-daughter relationships, the divine feminine, and its progression into the future. And Vesta is that portal, that manifestation beacon, this goddess that asks us to use our power of creation intentionally. So coming back to Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter in Cancer at the 2nd degree as we start the weekend, and then as the weekend progresses, Jupiter will move into the 3rd degree of Cancer. And this 3rd degree of Cancer is going to be making a inconjunct or a quincunx to the planet Pluto in Aquarius. So that's going to amplify that itchy and scratchy feeling we have already had with Jupiter squaring Saturn, which is now luckily in a separating aspect, but still with us. Because when the sun ingresses into Cancer this weekend, the sun will immediately square Saturn. So be comfortable with your discomfort that has been accumulating over the last 2 weeks. It's not going to end. If anything, the pressure to escape will be on our minds. There's pressure to simplify too. With the sun moving out of busy, varied, mutable Gemini, moving into Cancer, and then immediately squaring Saturn, and then a couple days after that, squaring Neptune, the planet of escape, of disassociation. A square is a challenge. So simplify this summer solstice, because that's what Saturn is begging for you to do, so that you can individuate and find peace amongst all of this chaos, amongst all these feelings of lack, survival, and tension. Neptune in Aries is asking for us to find peace amongst our lower centers, our impulsive, animalistic monkey mind that exists within our 3-dimensional shells. We are animals through flesh and angels through our thoughts. And we can choose to attach to this reality, or we can choose to seek the higher being that exists within all of us and connect with that through all of this chaos, through all this pressure to just survive. This can be an immensely creative time. Jupiter being at that 3rd degree in the sign of Cancer, making a quincunx to Pluto, the lord of the underworld himself, Jupiter, the lord of the heavens. By the time Jupiter moves into the sign of Leo and then comes to make juicy oppositions, we better have identified those changes and have made them well. Because with Jupiter in Cancer, it's asking for us to really dig deep into our history, our bloodlines, and our lineage to correct ancestral patterns that no longer serve us in this lifetime. They're going to be coming up in a way that isn't super direct. It's not an opposition, which is something that's face-to-face, challenging you. This is more subtle. This is like the Cold War. This is something that is not super visible, which is going to be the war within ourselves to change things that we do not need, that are rooted in ancestral traumas from our relatives. It will also be bringing up patterns to be reflected upon in this 3D world that are stemmed in your subconscious. So that's what I'm saying. It's invisible what we're experiencing, but it's manifesting visibly, especially with the ingress of Mars into the Earth sign of Virgo. And throughout the weekend, Mars will move to the 3rd degree of Virgo, which will be forming another inconjunct to the sign of Pluto, which means another invisible aspect that is putting pressure on our subconscious to change, to explore something different for the betterment of the social collective, Aquarius and Pluto. Pluto and Aquarius. And next weekend, asteroid goddess Pallas Athena will find herself in a square with Venus and Taurus. And Venus and Pallas in the mythology do not get along with each other as it is. So the fact that they're going to be in a naturally tense aspect next weekend, upon everything I'm saying about this weekend with the manifestation of subconscious unseen things happening in front of us in response to all of this chaos and also all the turmoil that we are experiencing within ourselves as a healthy process of elimination and course correction, because we are truly at a crossroads with Hecate and Vesta, who are asking us to change our perceptions, to change our habits, to change our routines. Hecate and Vesta are in a positive aspect to Mars this weekend. They're making a sextile. So it is really laying down the groundwork for transformation here in a physical way, stemming from the unseen. All this uneasiness we've been experiencing, if you're alive right now and a human, and participating in westernized society in any capacity, you are experiencing a multidimensional shift on every single mundane level. Economically, socially, spiritually, fundamentally, the human experience is shifting. We have a stronger connection with AI, and yet most of us still don't know how to properly use it because a lot of people in power are just more focused on creating advancements in technology rather than figuring out a true function and keeping the public informed. It's odd to me that they're racing to Mars when there's still so much for us to try and understand here on Earth on a fundamental level, in a way that's not trying to slow down technology, but asking for us to be more holistically involved as a species with the evolution of technology. Instead of technology taking on a accelerated path and moving forward beyond the typical human, only a few elites having access to these very advanced technologies, there should be more of an open forum, more of an ability to create accessibility and education through the use of technology instead of a rat race to Mars, which ultimately will just leave a bunch of people here on the planet and letting all the others who can afford to go forward and advance more in technology and thus create the haves and have-nots further. And, it's a silly game, but this is what I'm saying. If we are letting only a few people aggressively advance technology, and to the point that they are being able to create frontiers that have never existed before and then organize rules around it before the majority of the population can, there's a problem that is inevitably going to build, which is this massive divide. And it doesn't have to be considered the haves and the have-nots, but there's certainly something going on where the common trope is that humanity must progress technologically. However, this is leaving behind the reality that there is many ways to evolve, especially through the evolution of our own human vessel. Vesta. We can project whatever we want onto this vessel. We can modify it, or we could consider using the instrument that we already have and fine-tuning it better to actually step into a more prolifically energetic and magical human being, instead of outwardly attaching gadgets to ourselves to achieve basically the same things that we can achieve when we go inward and experience our inner landscape in a way that is on an evolutionary path. We have the opportunity to truly dig deep into the center of who we are and confront ourselves. Vesta, Hecate, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, even Taurus, along with Mars, are really asking us to make a shift. There's no longer ignoring what you already know. You know what you need to change. It's showing up in your world over and over again. The subconscious showing up, manifesting in a way that feels almost like a punishment. But it's because it is a divine timing to shape up and trust your humanity and trust your heart. It's really awesome that Saturn is giving us this opportunity to redirect our sense of self in a way that will fuse us with a better connection with our spirits. Asteroid goddess Ceres is also not too far away from the planet Neptune in Aries, and Ceres is a goddess of revolution and nurture. She's the goddess of the grain, which is linked to government. I was listening to a historian yesterday who, sadly, I can't remember the name right now, but his point was government is linked to the storage of grain, along with the need of spoken language, which goes all the way back to Sumer. When they would store grain for and keep track of it, there is a intuitive need for a organized body of government to manage the welfare of the collective resource, which is grain. So Ceres has a lot to do with structures and organizations, which Saturn does too. So she's definitely having an influence here throughout the weekend. She's at 9 degrees as we start, and she's chugging along, but she's definitely amplifying the themes of revolution, of change, of embodiment, of a change in how you structure your internal council so that they can judge properly. Maybe you gotta fire some people that are on your team inside of you and replace them with some better mantras, because something is obviously not working. But also, if it is working, you are probably experiencing an acceleration of your manifestations in a way that's supportive in your life, because, like I'm saying, the subconscious is manifesting through the play of Pluto, Jupiter, and Mars at this time, and it doesn't have to be all bad. It can be something of a glimpse of productivity, of support. Maybe you're experiencing random support in the form of new friends, or maybe a new investor, or you're having cosmic downloads and new ideas, and following the synchronicities, and you're seeing how you need to work on your this or that to be healthier. You're listening, and you're changing, and you're adapting, and you're seeing the universe support you just as much as the subconscious is manifesting in ways that is showing us how to change. The subconscious and the universe will be showing us a lot of synchronicities in the weeks to come. This is a really make it or break it moment. Like, things are not going to be getting any easier. So we need to listen to what's going on internally and through the universe to really tune in on what our next path is. Like I said, next weekend, Pallas Athena and Venus will be at a square aspect, and that's going to be suggesting that we will be a little bit at odds with our internal feminine, in the sense that Pallas Athena has to do with warfare and wisdom, along with crafts, and Venus has to do with creativity and relationships. So we might be experiencing a little bit of some combative female relationships next weekend. Whatever we experience this weekend is just going to be giving us a little bit more grit to what we will be expecting as the weeks come. We will be having a lot more internal struggles, all for the betterment of our whole, along with the collective at large here on Mother Gaia. It's going to be fun this weekend. Just take it with deep breaths and be really open to what the universe has, whether it be to embrace this crossroads, Hecate, and course correct in a way that is really good for your path and for humanity at large. It's all about making it real right now. And with that, I hope you all have a great weekend. Oh, also, on the summer solstice, I will be releasing my Ophiuchus special. So thank you all for being so patient. I am one person, and it took me a lot of energy and time to create and produce the Ophiuchus special. So please tune in. I will be premiering it on the summer solstice, which is this Saturday. Also, check out my website, galacticmythology.com, if you're interested in connecting with me outside of this podcast. Please share this information with your friends if it inspired you in any way. And also, please interact, because that helps the algorithm and that helps other people find this work. Thank you again for listening to the end. I'm Liz Grace Christie.